thank you all so much for being here. I know how busy our lives are. I know there are competing meetings, but I'm glad that you chose to be here because it's going to be an excellent conversation. My name is Megan Phillip. I serve as the Executive Director of the HC3, the Healthcare Council of Chicago. We're super proud to partner with our parent organization, Third Horizon, which has a corporate well-being vertical, as well as our friends at the Corporate Coalition on today's program. For those of you that may have come to today's event through some of our partner channels, E3 has been around for about 8 years. We focus on health and health equity through intersection of our healthcare partners. So providers, business stakeholders, anybody that touches health, they should be part of the HC3, which is honestly everyone. And so we have three pillars: addressing health and social inequities, economic development, and system transformation. Under that lens, we also think that health equity is at the center of those three things. So all of our programming really centers around those themes, as well as some of our partnerships and the initiatives that we work on with community-based organizations. If you want to learn more, visit our website, www.hc3.health, or come talk to me, sign up for our emails. Keep coming to programming because this is how we actually change our ecosystem. Today's program is very exciting because it's a very unique theme, but it's been part of an ongoing series called The Future of Work. And I was just reflecting with our moderator that I can't believe we've been managing this series for almost 2 years. It started in December of 2022. I don't know how we've had enough content to fill it, but we have. And so I think that this is very timely and interesting, though, as we think about being in the workplace, but also specifically how our age and our experiences influence that. So I'm very pleased to turn it over to my friend and colleague Marcos at the Corporate Coalition for the moderator of today's event, and he will introduce our panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you all for being here. As was mentioned, my name is Marcos. I serve as the program director with the Corporate Coalition of Chicago. It's great to see some friendly and familiar faces in the crowd. And we're just honored to be a part of this conversation. It's something that we reflect on regularly. We help run a program called Generation Work, where we're working with employers on increasing opportunities for young adults of color. We define young adults 18 to 29 years old. So it's a very regular conversation that we're having with employers around how can we increase opportunities for younger generations and what does that look like. So I'm very excited to have our panelists to continue reflecting on this conversation. I represent a geriatric millennial. This is a new term that I learned. There are many generations represented here. So I'll let our panelists introduce themselves. And if you can just share your name, the role you have, the generation you represent, and anything else you think would be valuable in terms of how you intersect with the workplace wellness or some of the topics that we're going to get into.
Hi, everybody. Okay, that's better. Hi, everybody. My name is Antoine Watson. I'm Assistant Project Manager for the Corporate Coalition. I assist on many of our projects and also the operation. I like to sound the wheels behind the company that keeps us rolling. But I also assist on a lot of different projects like Generation Work, one that Marcos was just talking about, and also a few others like Fair Chance Hiring and Corporate Connected that's like really focused on betterment for my community, the community I live in. And I think that's why I have a strong passion for the work that I do. That's a little bit about it. And generation, I still don't know. I was born in 1994, so I feel like a millennial, but sometimes people tell me I'm Gen X or Gen Z. It's one of them. I'm one of the gens.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Hart. I am the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for Third Horizon Strategies here in Chicago. My career, this career path I'm currently on, dates back to 2008 with the co-founding of a consulting firm here in Chicago. Since that time period, I've gone through, I was counting it yesterday, 4 transitions of that original company into various different shapes or forms. Along that way, a number of milestones or key events that sort of prompted those transitions. 2011 began work as the lead organizational change strategist for Eli Lilly Company for their global well-being program, which now extends benefits and resources in over 120 countries across the world. And then around the same time, also began a large national study on recovery support services in secondary institutions of higher education, which began the development of what would become the largest database for recovery support resources, and it was turned over to Google for their launch of the Recover Together sort of site. And then following that work, I found myself returning for graduate studies, where I went for applied data science in the School of Information Studies in Syracuse. I'll tell you the only thing of interest of that is that it was at the same time period that both my son and my daughter were initiating their undergraduate work. And so our bet at home was to see who could make it to the graduation stage first. I did not win, my daughter won. But I will say that I beat my son by a month, and if you're the father of a son, I will tell you that's the most important thing to do. Exactly. So my last transition has been to Third Horizon. This was through an acquisition. I've stepped into the current role. I lead a team of incredibly talented people who are building large data systems for advisory services, healthcare reform across the US. I too don't quite know the generation, but I believe that I am representative of the last stage generation as it relates to the workforce.
Thank you. I'm Kristen Handlock. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer for Rosecrans Behavioral Health. We're headquartered here in Chicago. I serve the organization and all of our workforce needs. We have 1,400 employees across the Midwest. From this panel's perspective, this is my second time serving on the panel with HC3. I served about a year ago with Marcos as a panelist, and then I get to sit as a panelist and he gets to lead, which is a fun switch. My interest in today is really multifaceted. One, from a wellness perspective, I launched our wellness program at Rosecrans from one of my first projects when I started back in 2010, and it's morphed over time, but it's always been a family component. So we invite spouses to participate in the wellness program as well as employees. The children can participate, not in the physical sense, but they can participate in PE or other activities like healthy foods or movement. Just don't make them go through like the medical screening part because we trust that they're getting what they need from their physicians. And then we've added some components within our talent acquisition. Don't be shy, thank you. From a generational perspective, and we're on the ends of the spectrum. We have a lot of new grads, younger individuals in the workforce that we need to cultivate and have them learn along with us. And then newer facet that we entered into, which I'd be happy to talk about later, is the older adults in the workforce through the AARP Employer Pledge Program. If you heard me talk in the last year, you probably heard me talk about that. So that's been an interesting opportunity for us. It's free. They vet you to make sure that you do have the programs in place. So I've enjoyed that. And then I love a fact check on what the geriatric millennial definition is. I might fit that. I classify myself as an elder millennial, but I may fit the geriatric definition too. So thank you. Happy to be here.
Good morning. My name is Pam Tully. I'm the president and COO at Skills for Chicagoland's Future. Really thrilled to be here and love working with Marcos and really enjoyed just interacting with the other folks on the panel here. This topic is, I'll start with, I'm a boomer. The last year, I believe, 64. I think that was the last year. Somebody can, yeah. And so this is really important to me, this topic, because the majority of the workforce that we have are probably 32 and under. My children's ages actually are close to. And as the president of the organization, I spend a lot of time trying to make sure that the culture we're creating, that the environment that we have is an environment that everybody and anybody wants to work in. And those are some basic principles, transparency and respect and how you treat people. But it's also, if you don't understand and can't connect to the individuals that you're working with or leading, it's awfully difficult, I think, to just get everybody engaged and involved and caring and moving towards the same space. For me, this is just really exciting because I hope to learn a lot as well. Thanks.
Thanks so much, everyone. I've seen some smiles as folks are introducing themselves, but hopefully you're finding some resonance with your own lived experience. One of the things that's really rich about our today's conversation, our panelists bring a lot of just in their professional lives, but being also to reflect on their personal lived experience throughout in their careers. We'll start with Pam. I'd love you to continue this conversation, thinking about workplace culture. How have your background and experiences influenced your professional path? And what significant changes have you observed throughout your career, particularly as it pertains to workplace culture?
Yeah, lots of things. I spent the majority, probably half and half now, the first 15 plus years of my career, I actually, very traditional undergraduate business school, MBA. I actually ran really large manufacturing and engineering organizations, kind of 600 plus people sized organizations, completely different work than I do now. And so that whole culture as a woman, as a Black woman, as a very young woman at the time, having significant responsibility in a pretty white male dominated field was very interesting, right? Well, I was pretty buttoned up about things. You did what you needed to do. It's not that I didn't establish relationships or connections with people, but I certainly didn't talk about some of the frustrations that I would run up against, or the barriers, or having to really be very forthright with people that appreciate your opinion, however, don't forget what side of the desk you're on. And that's not the kind of person that I am. It took me some time to get comfortable in that space. I'll tell you one quick story. A gentleman was standing next to me on the plant floor. This was back when everybody smoked at work. So how old I am, and myself included. So this was a long time ago. And this is in Southern Indiana. He looks at me and he says, "Okay, I got a question. Are you my boss's boss?" I don't really think about things that way. I hadn't thought about it, but let me do the math here. Yeah, I guess that's right. Do you have a problem with that? And he said, "No, you're good at what you do. I just never thought I'd see that." And I said, "See what?" And he said, "See a woman." It wasn't a racial thing. It was very interesting. See a woman leading the manufacturing in this company. So from that perspective, I have really, and I think it's just a function of who I am as a person, but I've really spent time over the last 15 years working mostly in nonprofits to make sure that nobody felt that they had to prove something when they'd already proven that, which is why they were in the job. So those are those experiences that just stay with me as I think about the culture we're creating. And it's all about people do the work. People get stuff done. If you can find those connections with the people you're working with, I just think it makes it more difficult for everybody to feel comfortable with it. Did I answer both of your questions?
Yeah, thanks. I'd love to invite Kristen as well to answer, because I think you provide a similar intersectional lens in terms of your experience in your own professional development and your career. Place people down.
Sure. So what I had shared in our prep discussion was a little vulnerable, and I know that's what Marcos is tapping me on the shoulder here. I'm the youngest executive for Rosecrans, and that comes with sometimes some judging and expectations of how did she get there. And I got there through a lot of hard work and long hours and just grinding it out like everyone else does. I didn't sleep with anybody to get my job. And that's just part of who I am. I was raised to work hard, go to school, work a part-time job to pay for school, and I've never looked back. And that's hard for people to understand sometimes because they see me, and I said in our prep call, I look younger than in that people for a week. So I just try to hold myself to the standard that I know I have, and the way I was raised, and the way I want the team that I supervise to lead themselves, and ignore some of the noise because it doesn't matter. That noise doesn't matter. So how I carry that out in the workplace is I'm the executive sponsor for our DEIB committee. And the acronyms change over time, but we have diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging as the acronym that we've chosen. And that allows everyone to not only be within the organization, but feel that they belong and truly do belong. So making a safe space for raising your hand and saying, that doesn't feel good, don't say that, or don't have a conversation as I walk by the hallway because I have thick skin, but maybe the next person doesn't, and that's not fair to the next person. I take the mama bear approach to making it a better environment for the next person. And I'm not saying we have a gossip problem or anything like that, but
I think that's a natural, just wondering that people may have pop in their heads. Anything else you want me to tap in on?
No, that's great. I think highlighting the challenges, the stereotypes, the perceptions that we have as we think about the different generations where folks should be by nature of their age, because the reflection you have for yourself, I know something I wrestle with. As an elder millennial, where should I be in the organizational structure at my age, and what anticipations or expectations that come with? So I appreciate you sharing, Kristen. Chris, I'm going to switch up a question for you, but it relates to this workplace culture. How have you witnessed shifts in the workplace culture, and how has that affected your own approach to your work, your interaction with colleagues or different generations?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this the other day, and I was reflecting on one of those first iterations of consulting that we were doing. We were spending a lot of time at the time period. Companies were going through major initiatives around culture building, around values-based leadership, and so the work at the time period was to spend time in the organization to work on listening and articulating this core set of values, and it would be up on the wall, and you get it on your mouse pads, and you would get it everywhere, and it became this central way in which we thought about organizing the group, the organization, and the company. And the values-based leadership that we would then start to initiate within the organization was all about the central idea that here are our corporate values, and this is the context by which we are to make decisions. And so our training would be about how do we make decisions in the business environment, in our life, but be able then to tether them to these values that are up on the wall. And for me, the most significant shift that I've seen over time is it's not that we've lost the concept of an organization or a company having values or traditions, and those are important. But the driver really now is about our own personal values. And I see time and time again when I'm talking in the younger sort of generation that's been involved in the work of really that clear outlook for how is it that my personal values are being reflected in the work that you're asking me to do. And that, by extension, then is working toward the corporate goals that we're seeking. So it's that fundamental shift that has been, I'm not here in service of the company values. I support them and I understand them, but they are not the central purpose for me. But really, I'm connecting myself to this work, and this work is important to me personally, and I'm being guided by that set of personal values that I have. And that's a fundamental shift that I think we've seen over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious, I know, like even in your opening, you were sharing a little bit about your passion for the work that you do, and how has that helped shape the choices and maybe the places that you wanted to work or looking to work for?
Absolutely. I'm a little lucky because I had the chance to go through a great program in the city that I never knew existed. So I tried the college route, I tried the military route, I tried a few different routes to figure out like what was the best path for me, and it was very hard to find it. And I found a program in Chicago. It's called Year Up Chicago, and like basically gave me my start to the corporate like journey. And when I was in that program, it was so heavy on community, it was so heavy on lifting up the people. The employees had circles that they all would go in and have like debriefings and talk, and it felt like a family. We weren't supposed to use that word too often, but that's what it felt like. And when I left and started my internship, I started an internship up north of Roseline at US Foods. And I was so excited to start that journey. And I stayed in logistics for about 5 years. I continued after US Foods, I went over to Uber Freight. And I enjoyed it. It paid very well, but I did not like going to work every day. And that's not ever what I wanted to do. I wanted that same feeling that I had when I was in that program. So I just started planning, and I started looking for another job that would actually give me that feeling. Like, money is cool, money is great. I do like to get paid, but I really needed a job that made me feel like I was giving back to the community the same way the community gave back to me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I appreciate that perspective. And you both are highlighting that shift and representing different generations in that interaction. Shifting the conversation with David, another big shift that we've seen across generations is work-life balance. I'm curious, how has work-life balance and the integration or expectations of work-life balance impacted you in your choice of career or how you're navigating your current work environment?
I'm not very good at work-life balance, but I think that's also a generational thing. I think everybody struggles with work-life balance, but for me specifically, I think that my generation was taught that you have to work longer hours. You have to put in extra hours to get the job done. You can have a life, but I'm scared to put in PTO. A lot of my friends, it's hard for us to plan a group vacation because they're scared to put in PTO, even though we have PTO most of the time. I have it at the end of the year and I'm trying to figure out how to use it, or I just have to let it go to waste. That's how most of my PTO works. But it's funny because young adults that are a little younger than me, they have no problem. They'll take off 2 weeks if they need. It's their time. They're not asking, they're just letting you know I'm about to be gone for these 2 weeks. I'm scared. I just took my daughters to Disney World this weekend. I'm so tired. And I'm checking my email while I'm at the park. And like people nudging my stop checking your email. I'm like, I just want to look at it real quick. I have to get better with work-life balance. So I have to.
Look here for other panelists. How do you see that work-life balance? Personal career.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right. I think I personally, and I've been involved with the wellness discussions for 15, 20 years. I think work-life balance is a little bit of a myth. I think it's elusive. I don't think that it's one of those things that we can achieve the way in which we tend to describe it. And that has fundamentally changed because it's extremely difficult anymore to find quiet. So I am old enough to remember before we had all the devices that we have right now, you could find quiet, you could step away, you just can't do that right now. And so we fight it a little bit. And I think in various different generations, there's a concern about, I have to show my commitment, I have to be here and be engaged. A lot of that is signals from what you're getting from your direct manager, et cetera, and that type of thing. And I think then on the other end of the spectrum, I'm in what I consider to be and I introduced this as my generation, my last stage, so to speak. I'm not transitioning again. So I'm now focused on committing time for a legacy. And so I balance that. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, work-life balance is you come to peace with the way in which that you integrate the two things. The work and life are integrated. And it's just the way it is. You have to be comfortable with that and be in a group and a family and a community where you can come in and out of things that will give you the power that you sort of need to continue to serve.
My career is so entwined into who I am as a person, it's really hard to separate it. And if you just look at me from the outside, you're like, that girl has the worst work-life balance ever. However, for me, it really does work. It's part of my passion. It's what gives me, really true meaning in my life. It's also the career I've chosen. We're 24/7 operations. Our clients are with us all the time. If I didn't want that, I would not be with this organization. So that's one thing. The other side of it, I'll answer from an organizational perspective. You, as employers in the room, can have catches in your systems to help with that. If you have cutoffs at the end of the year where staff lose PTO, change that. There's nothing that says that you have to use it or lose it at the end of the year. You can allow some rollover. I know it's financial risk, but maybe a week or something. We have a policy that allows staff to roll over 288 hours every year. It doesn't matter. It helps us so that it's not Antoine not taking off 2 weeks at the end of the year because our clients are still with us at the end of the year. We still need Antoine's help. And we're not taking off 2 weeks, but it's a good example. And then also to allow staff to go to supervisors to say, hey, I've got this thing coming up. I'm not sure how to navigate myself. Can you help me? Have that open door expectation. And then we have some other catches in place. If we see somebody who hasn't taken PTO in a while, we have some automatic notifications that go out, hey, so-and-so hasn't taken PTO in 30 days. What's up with that? Can we encourage them? Or they're getting close to their maximum accrual. Let's help them get below that. And sometimes there's reason it's end of the year or it's low staff or whatever, but it's never in anyone's favor to have staff working in that way. So how can we help? And that's usually in everyone's best interest.
I have a real different viewpoint on this one in that part of that is I've worked for 35 or whatever years, but I think you absolutely can achieve it. And I think it is a personal thing, right? I used to be that person that I was on my email every time we were on vacation, all of those things. Children helped change that for me as well, to be quite frank, where I wasn't asking, right? My kids all played sports, my kids were all very involved. That's time I couldn't get back. Just, you don't get that back. You're not able to go, oh, hey, you know, when you played volleyball, I used to love watching, can you play now? It's like, no, I don't. So yeah, I think as I got older, and I had kids a little bit later also, so maybe I felt a comfort level in terms of establishing my credibility, the respect that I had where I worked in a way that I could say, hey, the next 3 months, I had 3 kids playing sports, so I'm gonna dip out early and I'll be back. I'll get my work done. You don't have a problem with that, and that's the way it should be. The hours, the FaceTime, as I used to call it, the people who were in the office but weren't working, but they were in the office for the FaceTime. None of I could spot those people, and so for me, it's really important. And those people on my teams who do take their time are the ones I will call out in terms of either our kind of monthly town halls. And hey, how was your trip? I know that was really important to you. How did it go? I'm so glad you took that. Because it's really a personal thing. And you just have to get your mind in a space where I know I'm doing my work, I know I'm doing it well. If those are the things that are important to whomever where I'm working, I think you want to think about that too, to be honest, right? I'll tell you just a quick story of that. I was a COO for a nonprofit. My kids were very involved. I worked downtown, I live in the burbs. I was trying to manage that sort of, I need to hop out, I'll get it done. My boss really was struggling with that. She was just like, she just wanted me to be in the office next to her whenever she was there. And I said, that's just not gonna work. What should we be having a different conversation? Because I'm not missing this stuff and I'm getting my work done. And literally, we ended up compromising for about 3 months. She allowed me to change my hours in a way that she always knew she could get to me. And I think it helped her that she moved forward with other people, as well as it helped me say, yeah, this was the right call to just stand up on this, because the last thing I want for my kids to see that behavior, which my husband is one of those, and they're in their early to mid 20s now. They're more on vacation. It's dad, really put it down, right? And so their whole mindset of, I don't know that I want to join that. I don't know that I want to do that work, because every time we're on vacation, dad's like gone for a day and a half because he's got to take this meeting or he's got to. And I'm on and I have really competent staff. Do I need to be on this call? Probably not. I might feel better, I might have some FOMO, right? But it really is, I think, an internal look to say, okay, what's really important to me, and making sure that you it's easier said than done, making sure that you try and get there.
So much. As you're talking, I was thinking about the Future of Work series started as the pandemic was rolling out, right? I remember terms of quiet quitting or the Great Resignation that were really highlighted by a lot of the burnout that was happening by the nature of this generational wrestling with what does work-life balance look like. And it's interesting because we think about what expectations now folks have, particularly around benefits that they have. So I'd love to go to Kristen. In your HR role, how have you seen employee expectations around workplace benefits or health coverage or health supports shift or evolve around different generations?
Sure. So I can talk 3 enhancements that I'm proud of that we've added to meet flexibility needs. One is we added a component to our health plan that allows for virtual visits through MD Live. It's embedded within Blue Cross Blue Shield, but it doesn't have to be embedded within Blue Cross Blue Shield. You can contract separately. And we even lowered the price to seek service through that feature. And it's most things that you would go to an immediate care for. It's not everything, but it saves wear and tear on the staff, waiting for an appointment, if they do offer an appointment, at the immediate care, time away from work, and it's an easy button. You can literally do it on your phone for yourself, spouse, or dependents, and that's been a great thing. And it's available in 50 states, so if there's kids away at school, that's been a great enhancement. The other thing is we fired our EAP and added a new EAP vendor. EAP is Employee Assistance Program. The current vendor that we have is very flexible with their interpretation of life events. So our prior carrier had a rule of you can only get 6 sessions of EAP services in a year. This vendor that we have allows you to have 6 sessions every time you have a life event, as defined by you. So if my dog passes away, that's a life event. If I get in a car accident tomorrow, that's a life event. If my mom is ill or whatever, every time you can kind of bring it on the honor system. And they're very loose with householders and how that's different. So I think that helps extend family situations a little bit where it's not traditionally covered in the box of like how the federal government defines dependent. That, you know, if that person is, you include them in your family, tell them that it's fine. They're not checking to make sure that, and maybe your neighbor that's sitting in your house that day, it's cool. You pay for it, don't worry about it. Because there are a lot of little lines with family, and we support that because why not? It's a very easy way for us to support the employee. And then last, this one I'm really proud of. We implemented some additional time off separate from PTO this year that allows staff to volunteer in their community up to 8 hours a year. That's paid for by Rosecrans in a way that's meaningful for the staff. They don't have to tell us what they're doing. They don't have to get permission from their supervisor to say, oh yes, we think that's worthy of these hours. We want them to do community-based work, but however it is meaningful for them is totally fine with us. It could be volunteering at their kid's school, it could be watching their kid, it could be walking the neighbor's dog, no matter. We do ask if staff are willing to share their projects that they've completed with us. We want to celebrate with them. That's really all. But we're documenting the number of hours that staff have used, and then we'll do an end of year celebration that way with staff. And for us, it allows us to be, as an organization, good stewards in the community so that we can give time to the community outside of the projects that we're already doing as an organization in the community. And then again, in ways that are meaningful for staff. So we call it our champions and service hours. Just a few different ways and a few ways that I'm proud of as well.
That's fantastic. Because I think really new and similar question around utilization. And this could be either from your own lived experience or as you see data, how have you seen the shifts and change of utilizing some of the services that's being provided by employers for supporting folks with wellness?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, just to pick up what Chris was saying, I think, and tell me if you agree with this, but I think that there's a fundamental shift going on with our concept of EAP. Time and time again, I see this evolving and changing, and it's happening for a couple of reasons. But one of the primary reasons is that the traditional way in which individuals were doing outreach to EAP and specific to their sort of events, we were finding that you could go through the protocol, and particularly as it relates to mental health and substance use disorder, and you were still faced with the fact that a provider was not available within a duration of time in which you needed them. And so data shows us now we have a real issue in this domain where individuals that are seeking support, clinicians in mental health and substance use disorder, are 3.5 times more likely to go out of network because they can't receive the service in their current benefit package. If you're looking for psychiatrists or psychologists, it's about 10 times as likely to go out of network. And so we're seeing this fundamental change time again. You described sort of change that's been implemented on the EAP. The other way we're seeing this change is we're actually seeing the purchase of private networks. So we are seeing the removal of the EAP and we're purchasing a network that will ensure that when we when one of our employees or their loved ones or dependents needs the help, that it's something that will be there. But there's still some fundamental areas that we have not been able to address. One is that most of our well-being efforts, so to speak, that broadness and benefits up there, have largely always been designed for the corporate setting. They've been designed if you go to an office and you're in the headquarters. It is very challenging when you start talking about manufacturing and when you start talking about individuals who are working in fields. And this has yet to really be something that we are starting to bring into sort of the overall fold. And then the final thing I'll say is that you probably had the same experience as you were sort of going through this. When you began designing your well-being benefits, however, whatever name you sort of put that under, you had a choice. You could go two different routes. Route one was you could go the incentive route. You could put out a program and say, I'm going to incent you to go get your preventive screening. And for that, here's a discount on sort of your health, et cetera, et cetera. And we have learned over time that that has a impact here, but it has very little impact in terms of lasting behavioral sort of changes in the lifestyle. And what we've learned over time is that really the key, and you said this in words in your introduction, I think, was the key is really around how do you affect the circle of people that are around that individual, that what we call that social network that they have, and that just to define that for a second, because Pew will tell you that's about 6 to 10 people. And they define it as these are the people that you spend your free time with and you discuss important matters with. And those 6 to 10 people have an unbelievable impact on your life. And this dates back, this is an extension of the Framingham Heart study that then moved into James Fowler and Nicholas Christakis, who did the connected work in that. And their research showing what they call the social contagion, right? This is the 3 degrees of separation in terms of that. Whereas if you in that network, that small network of people, if one person in that network happened to be obese, as an example, it increased the likelihood that you would be obese by 57%. A friend's friend, 27%. A friend's friend, 10%. And so the impact was fairly significant, and that applies to everything. Your happiness, your connectedness, how you look, who you marry. All of that is connected to sort of that. And so our change really has been an outlook of not only impacting the individual through the benefits, et cetera, but how do you enroll that real fabric of social network, the family, the friends, et cetera, and engage them in such a way through the benefits that they are then having that fulfillment of impact to the individual.
Yeah, it's wealth of knowledge you're bringing, Chris. What the trend to add for similar in this conversation representing kind of the younger voice, you alluded to this a little in terms of what you experienced younger folks looking for. Are there things that particularly you're prioritizing or thinking about as you think through career changes and what employers can provide for you in terms of that workplace benefit?
Yeah, and I think it goes directly to what they both just mentioned, because I think it is about like people around me. I haven't been able to find a job to match the type of benefits that corporate gave me. And if I'm being honest, I think that's why I stayed there for 5 years. But I think the main focus of my benefits is my mental health and the mental health of my wife, my life partner. Like, I was ready to leave my job after only being there for like a year and a month. I was like, I did 1 year in corporate. I think I want to get out of logistics. But my wife had got pregnant, and they offered me 18 weeks of paternity leave, and they gave her $750 Uber credits, like directly to her account, to like pay for Ubers to the back and forth to the hospital, to use on Uber Eats for food for the house, and that alone made me stay. And it wasn't because it was like a financial thing. It was like when every time I told somebody, yeah, I got 18 weeks of paternity, it was like, I don't even get 18 weeks. Like, what did you? And I did not take full 18 weeks. I only took 9 weeks, and it goes back to me not wanting to take PTO, but it was still like the opportunity to take that. And then they gave us a virtual doula. We got like 220 therapy sessions that we could use for like separate, like she could use, or we could use like couple parenting sessions. And I think that alone just made me like stick around. Like, I used up all those sessions. She used up all those sessions. Then we also had, even outside of the practice, like we also had access to something called Lila Health. And you can go in there and like just, it was a virtual thing. It was very user friendly. You can go in there and tell how you're feeling. It'll suggest what you might need therapy for. It'll give you people that was inside the network that the company was providing. It was very just easy to get what I need. And And then our PD spend didn't have to necessarily be used for professional development. It could be used for gym membership. It could be used for an office chair, an orthopedic office chair that you need at your house. Like, it could be used for anything that you need to feel better to do your job. Like, and I think that alone just made me stay in the job. That's what I'm looking for any time that I have benefits. Less about PTO time and just more wraparound services like, hey, we'll give you 2 mental health days. That's better than giving me 10 PTO days. 2 mental health days and not even explain to anybody when I'm taking off. That's amazing. That's something that I've only gotten at my last job, the job in between. So I think that's something I really look for when it comes to like employee assistance.
Kristen and MSS and relations. I don't know if you want to jump in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to work on grades. Yes. Such a
It will.
opportunity for you and your wife. Great. There are some, I mean, we can't afford to do that. Organization, I'll say that at the start, but there are some other add-on services that we've implemented over time, like a discount program, perk spot. You have to be a pretty large employer to partner with them. They're actually our neighbor in our corporate office building in River North, and my silly self and our CEO walked down there. We're like, what do you guys do? Like, we're a corporate discount program at Google. We're like, oh, cool, we're upstairs. Do you have a brochure? They're like, no. So we started talking with them, and they let us into their network because we were neighbors upstairs. So we are way smaller than we should be to be in their group, but friendly neighbors in Chicago. So it's discounts for our staff on pretty much everything that you can buy, from baby clothes to Disney vacations to whatever. They make money on the transactions online. So it's a good partnership. It costs us nothing. Savings for the employee, good things for them. So there's creative ways to leverage resources like that makes life a little bit easier for the workforce.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, seriously, though, that's awesome. We are a very small organization, so a lot of those things are difficult, but we've done things in the last year and a half to just try and provide as much support as we can. So we do simple things like during the summer, every Friday is a half day. You don't have to hit a metric. You don't have to do something for that. Just every Friday is a half day. Now, I will tell you, at first, I was like, okay, this is just not working for me, because now I still have all this market, right? Like you feel like you're then start Monday, and I'm like, and I am one of those people who does work a lot, but I keep that to myself so that others, I don't send emails on off hours to my team. I try to have those kind of work hours, but that was a tough one to get used to, but people appreciated it. We do have a resource where you can, I think the company's name is Hero, and they actually provide support if you're needing to find someone to help an elderly parent. You tell them the location, and they will go do all the due diligence and give you the information. And so we do provide that resource, and it's across a lot of different things as well. But we've tried to get creative on the things that we can do, since we can't, just from a financial perspective, do so many others.
One more question, and then we'll open it up. The folks have other questions that I can ask our panelists. So each of you can speak briefly as we're thinking about your own growth and the journey that you've had. How has mentorship, both formal or informal, played a role in your own growth, development, and or whether that's you're providing it or receiving it?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me this question, because I get to shout out somebody in the room. Janine, she is actually one of my mentors. But I think that they shape everything about my career. I still get phone calls from them. They still check in on me every chance that they get. I think if it wasn't for my mentors, I wouldn't be able to navigate the corporate world, because I don't come from this world. I'm not college educated like a lot of my peers. Even you, this Marcos is my direct manager. I hope you heard the name about that day Friday. But even still, like when I heard when Marcos asked me to be on the panel, I'm like, yeah, I absolutely do panel And then Megan sent out a flyer, and I looked at everybody's title, and I'm like, oh wow, no, I don't think I'm gonna do panel. And I would have actually set out if he really would have talked me into it, and like really convinced me. And I just think you need mentors like that in your career journey, because like you'll miss out on a lot of the opportunities if you don't have somebody like always pushing you, or even sometimes when I feel down and a mentor will call me and it's like, you're doing great from my aspect. It's like, I think I'm falling apart, but just you saying that just made it so much better.
I was thinking about this actually, the mentorship thing, and as I think all of us would recognize the importance of it. There's the importance of being able to onboard, orient, bring people into an understanding of sort of what's being done here and how everything works and all that. And then all of us in our lives, I think, can reflect back on an individual who provided that and how unselfish that is from a person's perspective. But one of the things I was thinking about is that somebody who is potentially can play a mentorship role at that stage. I just would encourage us to keep in mind that I believe that there are two outlooks when you get to this stage in your career. Outlook one is you're really looking at legacy from the lens of how is it that I can work with individuals, that I can provide skills and competencies, and that what I've done in my lifetime from a career will then be carried through by those individuals that I've been part of this knowledge of, that I've given that learning to. Those are your mentors. But there is an equal other side of this, where your legacy is about, I have a finite amount of time, and I have a body of work that I want to finish. And I am focused on finishing that body of work, and then I'll give it over to other peers. And for that group and that outlook, mentorship is actually a conflict. It's a little bit of a distraction, because it's not that you don't want to do it, but I have other important things that I want before I'm done with whatever this cycle is. So I think as we're looking at the critical role of mentorship within organizations, I would just stay mindful of the fact that there are going to be two different outlooks, both of which can be leveraged. But it's important to recognize that not everybody is set to play that mentorship role. And it's very much a special role that has to be something that they inherently believe in, can give to wholeheartedly, and authentically can show up and be that person for you.
I have received mentoring and I'm very grateful for that along my years, and I'm always interested in different perspectives. I try to give that in return to pay it forward. To Chris's end of having finite time, I wish I had a clone. If anyone has that capability, technology, please let me know. I don't. So I am careful of sending myself and letting somebody down. That is my major fear. So I try impact in a larger way. So whether it's through my board activities that I have, I'm very involved in the university front through Northern Illinois University as an alum, and then also mentoring and guiding our leadership team at Rosecrans. We have our director level and above leaders, we call the next level leaders. Every year we do a large retreat in person. Everyone comes to a central location and we team build, we reflect on accomplishments or opportunities from the past, and then really just launch into future planning. And that is literally the most exhausting 2 days of my life, but it's the most impactful 2 days because I have 70 of our team, our community there together, and I know I can have an impact in that moment, and it carries on throughout the year. We're coming to Chicago in September next year. Everyone wants to join up and meet some of our group. We'd love to have you. I'm careful with it, I'm protective of it, and try to, a larger speed. If that's, what I can do, that's what I can do, and right or wrong, but that's the approach that we're taking at the moment. Thank you.
There's another one that's dear to me. I was fortunate enough to have a dad who was extremely accomplished in his life, both from a corporate standpoint, being an officer at a Fortune 50 company to government. And so I grew up watching him take a lot of interest in young people, and just making sure that again, I think when we talk about the timing of him coming up, just those doors weren't open for a lot of blacks or black men, right? I think he was so very conscious of that, talked about that so much that that's what you do. And if you're late for dinner, Dad, because you're meeting with somebody who needed your time, cool. I get you when I need you, and other people really could benefit from who you are and what you've done. I tend to take it pretty seriously. I will, to that point, it's a time thing, and the way you said, you have to be committed to do it, you have to be built to do it. I just think it's just because someone has great experience doesn't mean they're gonna be good at being a mentor. It's kind of taking that salesperson, making the sales manager and screw everything up. So I think you do have to know your own limitations, but I had the benefit of not just my father, but two very instrumental gentlemen in my first couple jobs out of graduate school. They took time. They were in rooms where they could influence what assignments and things that I got. And because of them taking that time and those relationships, I absolutely wouldn't have been running a plant at 28 or 29 without some of these guys saying, you can do this. People just aren't used to seeing people like you do it, and we got you. So there's a lot of people I talk to. Just anybody who reaches out to me, to be quite, I will talk to. It's very rare that I've had people, hey, someone still gave me your name. They said you might just have a conversation with me. And a lot of the time, it's just somebody outside of your work environment or your kind of network. It's weird how you'll tell people things that you don't know. It's so important, but it's so important to know when it's too much or not too much. I have had those moments of that, but it's really important.
Thank you all so much. We have time to maybe one or two questions. So if there are any burning questions in the audience that folks would want to ask our illustrious panel here.
Thanks for doing this. My name is Armando Med Action Tech Careers Networking Group. My questions to any of the panelists is what common pitfalls or opportunities have you seen in intergenerational communication in your workplaces?
So questions about intergenerational pitfalls and or opportunities.
Yeah, so I actually had the benefit of working for Europe at one point, and the team when I was working with them, we were a team full of very different generations, and the communication just was not working. Like, it just was off. And we had a lot of work to get done. And it's very important work because we're working with young adults who really are looking forward to this opportunity for them. We had a team town hall meeting, and when we walked in the room, they had sheets of paper all over the wall, and they had all the different generations on it. It was like split down the middle of T-table. So it was like 1950s, baby boomer, Gen X, Gen Z, like literally all of the different ones. And they said, they gave everybody a pen, and they said, walk around the room. And on one side of the paper, write down what you assume of this generation. Don't go to yours at all. Just go to everybody else's. Write down what you think of this generation with one word or one phrase. And then when you get to your sheet, like the one, so millennial, for example, write down an event that happened during your time that was very traumatic for you or that you could remember. So for me, I wrote Katrina, Hurricane Katrina. I remember I was in like 4th or 5th grade. We got snatched out of school because we had family from Louisiana. And it was a very big thing. But everybody wrote down different things. Then we walked around the room and saw, and you were just able to see all the different things that every generation had going on, because I feel like there was like a superiority type thing. Oh, my generation has it worse, or you just all don't communicate properly. So I think I put everybody on the basis. For a specific example, I was struggling with an older person at my job. They always sent emails between 5:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. always. And it was like they were expecting an answer. I'm a very early worker. I get up at 6:30 in the morning. I knock my work out so I can have the rest of my day. So we always missed each other, but we had to work with each other. And it just was not like working properly at all. After this meeting, looking at things, something that was on her thing was Y2K. So she doesn't like technology and she doesn't like anything outside of her email. So learning how she needed to communicate, me being able to tell her like, hey, I'm an early person. I didn't tell her directly. I was just able to speak up in the meeting. I'm an early worker. Because of my age, I like to work so I can have later on. I got to pick up my child at 3:15. So sometimes I'm gonna miss an email if you send it at 3:30 because that's my pickup time. After we had that conversation, we were literally able to work. She would still send emails at that time, but at the end of it, don't feel free not to respond. I can read your response tomorrow. I will wake up in the morning and get her all the work she needed before I signed off, and even send her an email like, "Hey, this is what I finished up on. Let me know tomorrow, or I'll check your emails when I wake up." And it just worked smoothly. And I think that our whole team was able to work better because we were able to understand each other from a generational lens. I hope that answered your question.
Anyone else? Probably have time for one more answer.
I was just gonna say, I think being vulnerable and being willing to say, okay, I have no idea what you just said. Like, what is it that you want from me? And I think that goes a long way. I tend to, I hang out with my kids a lot. So most of the people that I work with, I actually can communicate, and it seems natural when I communicate in a vernacular that they communicate in, to the point where they're always making fun of me. It's Pam probably knows that, right? But but I've also asked a lot of questions too, right? So I just think just being vulnerable, we're all trying to get to the same place. I might say it differently. I do think that helps.
I want to give a big round of applause to our panel. That last question on the value of intergenerational relationships, I'd be curious if you all leave today reflecting on where is it that you're encountering diverse generations within your personal life and work life, and how might that contribute to an expansive vision of what wellness can mean for all of us to make a healthier work. I want to thank you all for being here, but pass it to Megan to close us up and talk about any other future opportunities and conversations that you might see out in the future.
Yeah, I just want to give another round of this wonderful with us for sharing your personal stories as well as your professional stories. I think that we are people, we show up to the workplace, and we can't get anything done without each other. So I appreciate it. And to our partners at the Corporate Coalition, the tremendous work you're doing in this space. I encourage you all to keep in touch with us at 823, the Corporate Coalition. Margos can tell you more about Corporate Coalition. I can talk about 823. And our next opportunity is virtually on October 28th. I believe there's a QR kind of floating around our women's health and social equity, addressing barriers to health and being for women specifically. So we already know that there's somebody focused on period poverty from a national scale, as well as domestic violence. Really timely topic to take care of women's health care needs, especially as we go into an election. So that's the theme of that discussion. And as always, please feel free to check back on our website. We have a little time to network and kind of slowly trickle out, but so it's no rush. There's also some snacks that if you were a little shy, there's some beer with popcorn. I know it's still a little early pre-lunch, but take it to go. But thank you all for joining us.